Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breckland Planning for today. It's going to be a comparatively short meeting because we haven't got much on today. We have only got one member of the public in today who's an agent. So I trust, sir, that you know all about the fire exits, and you know about not having your mobile phone switched on, and you know the procedure, and you know who are in the room. Good, thank you. That saved a bit. Okay, so we'll go straight on to the agenda for today. Item 1, the minutes. It's to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of August 2023. Are you in agreement that I can sign those minutes? That's fine. Thank you. Here we go, Julie. Minutes done. Thank you. Item 2, apologies and substitutes, please, Julie.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one apology from Councillor Anscombe.
Okay, thank you, Anscombe. Item 3, declarations of interest and representations received. I will take them as each item is raised. Item 4, Chairman's announcements, only just to say that we will be following this meeting with the local plan members workshop. Item 5, requests to defer applications included in this agenda.
Yes, Chairman, a request to defer application 3PL 2022-0433F at Arenal, New Buckingham Road. That item is being deferred.
Okay, thank you for that. Item number 6, any items of urgent business you wish to take? No, okay, that's fine. So item 7, we'll go on to the local plan update, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We've received the inspector's fact-checking letter in relation to the partial review of the local plan, which seeks to address policy INF03. The fact-checking letter is not the final decision and is not a public decision. It is a letter issued to the local authority to just comment on any issues of fact that may be contained within it. The letter is a positive letter in relation to the position of the local authority. We will be responding to it formally in the next 24 hours. And we will then await the final decision from the inspector. We will then seek to get the local plan to the next available full council meeting so that it can be formally adopted with that amendment within it. We have also received the examiner's fact-checking report on the Watton neighbourhood plan. We will be looking at that over the next week and responding. Following that, we will be working with the neighbourhood plan group to arrange a referendum within Watton on the neighbourhood plan. We anticipate that will probably be towards the end of this year. You may have heard on the news today references to changes to the position around nutrient neutrality. I have to say that I probably know as much as you do in relation to the news reports. The position has not formally changed, but we are awaiting additional information via the ministerial statement later on today, hopefully. As soon as we know what the position is and what the requirements are, then we will do a note and circulate it for members to keep you fully in the picture. But at the moment, all we are aware is that there will be some proposed changes to the Levelling Up Bill, which is currently going through Parliament, and that there may be reference to the advice from Natural England being guidance rather than statutory. But as I say, we will update you as soon as we know anything more. Just reflecting on the last update, there was a question about the brownfield register and the number of dwellings that would be provided if all those that are on the register were built out. That question was raised by Councillor Clark. The answer to that is 613 dwellings, and we have responded to him accordingly. There was also a query from Councillor Kybird in relation to the 5-year housing land supply and the fact that we were including caravan parks where appropriate within that count. With reference to one of the parks, there is no breach of planning control that we are aware of, and that is a lawful site. As the chairman mentioned, we have the first of a series of workshops after committee today. This session will be repeated on the 5th of September, and then there will be further sessions which will be clarified later in relation to various topic papers and the housing and economic assessment work that is being carried out. Thank you, Chairman.
Any questions? Councillor Attawell, please.
Yeah, just a query. I'm not a constitutional government expert, but if they're doing a ministerial statement, doesn't Parliament have to be sitting to do that? I'm not sure where in the legislation the nutrient neutrality thing was. I thought there was something like that. They may have to make a statement in Parliament, and I think that's also something to do with statutory instruments. I don't know, but I'm not sure. An announcement on GB News is the same as standing in Parliament and giving a statement.
I'm not a constitutional expert either, and I may have chosen my words incorrectly. All I know is that there will be something issued later on today, so it may well be my use of language, and I heard on the BBC News. So.
It could be that the parliamentary item part to it is just a ratification to follow. Could be. I don't know. Not going to get involved in that. Okay. Okay. That's fine. Thank you. Item 8 is deferred applications, which we are not covering today. Yeah. Item 9 is our schedule of planning applications, and we're going to start with 9C at 9B at Riddlesworth. And I've got James Platt, the agent, and Councillor William Nunn, if you'd like to come sit on the right-hand side, please. And Naomi will be doing the presentation on that. That should be it. Thank you. Over to you, please, Naomi.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for the conversion of a redundant pavilion building and the creation of access to provide 1 number unit of holiday accommodation. A previous, so the application site falls beyond any settlement boundary, as you can see on the plans there, and is described as the Pavilion Lodge Farm Estate in Gasthorpe, Riddlesworth. In policy terms, the site falls in the open countryside. It's in a very small rural area and surrounded by a number of agricultural fields. The site and access is also located within an oil pipeline 100-metre buffer zone. So this is the site and wider context. This is the proposed site plan. A previous application to convert the pavilion building into one holiday let was refused planning permission earlier this year on principle and ecology grounds, and the latest application seeks to address the previous reasons for refusal. Additional information has been submitted in that regard. So these are the existing elevations and floor plan, and the proposed elevations and the proposed floor plan. As you can see, it's a conversion into a 1-bedroom holiday let. And these are the site photos. The agent emailed some site photos to me on Friday. However, I was out of the office until today, so we've printed those off so that they can be passed to members to see the interior of the building. So the site photos I have are just from the exterior, from the roadside, and the interior pictures are now being passed around to members so you can see the state of the interior. So in terms of consultations, Riddlesworth Parish Council have raised no objection to the conversion of the building. The Local Highway Authority have raised no objection, subject to condition. The applicant has now addressed the ecology issues, so there is no objection subject to condition in terms of ecology and GI RAMs. Building control advised that there was no Anglian water sewer in the vicinity, therefore a sewage treatment plant would be required. However, they raised no objection. Environmental Health have raised no objection, subject to condition in terms of amenity considerations. And Contaminated Land Officer required a predetermination questionnaire to be submitted. This was done and they were reconsulted. However, no further comments have been received. Given the location of the site, it's not considered to be an issue in contamination regards, subject to an appropriate condition being added. 2 letters of representation received from local residents raising concerns with regards to the proposal, and they are summarised in the officer report. In terms of the principle of the development, which was a previous reason for refusal, this has been reassessed having regard to the additional information that was submitted. It was assessed in line with policy EC07, which relates to tourism development, but also policy HOW 12, which relates to the conversion of buildings in the countryside. In terms of policy EC07, having regard to the additional information that was submitted, it was considered that the site is not a brownfield site and it does not bring regeneration benefits in terms of the proposed conversion. It's considered that the accessibility to other modes of transport is limited with very limited public transport options. It is accepted that it relies on a specific geographical resource, as it is the conversion of an existing building. However, this is not considered sufficient to outweigh the conflict with other parts of the policy. In addition, no contributions have been offered to improve the accessibility. The site brings limited opportunities to improve access to public rights of way and green infrastructure, which is one of the requirements of policy CO7. In a recent appeal decision in Wissenset, the inspector refused a proposal for a wellness retreat facility with the erection of 3-number log cabins and studio. The inspector concluded with regards to the policy that there were benefits proposed from the development. These included that the proposed development aimed to provide holidays for individuals and families suffering from dementia. It recognised that the appellant indicated that the development would utilise services for other local businesses and create employment, and that the proposal would involve extensive woodland planting, thus enhancing green infrastructure. However, the inspector also weighed in the balance the site's location outside the settlement boundary, which would not readily be accessible and to sustainable modes of transport. The inspector concluded, whilst economic and environmental benefits weigh in favour of the proposal and support the requirements of policy EC07, such benefits do not negate the harm that was identified in respect of the visitor impact on the environment and infrastructure and limited sustainable transport accessibility. Only the latter point is relevant in this regards to this application, because that previous appeal related to new holiday lodges, and this one is obviously for the conversion of an existing building. However, we have had regard to it, and overall we consider that the proposal is contrary to policy EC07, and in respect of policy HOW 12 relating to the conversion of a building in the countryside, Although it supports the sustainable reuse of buildings for economic purposes and should be given some weight in the determination of this application, it is not considered that this building is appropriately located for the use proposed, and therefore it is considered contrary on principle, and the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Nunn. Would you wish to go first or last?
Last, please, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. James Platt, please, who's the agent. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. Contrary to paragraph 1.13 of the committee report, noting the conversion proposed, policies Housing 12 and ECO 7 should be read together and afforded equal weight in the planning balance. The proposal will comply with these key policies for the following reasons. Firstly, the application relates to an existing building which is now redundant. That is the baseline for any assessment of landscape impact. The proposal offers the opportunity to improve the existing presentation of the building such that it would not only maintain but enhance its relationship with the countryside thereabouts. Secondly, as a single unit of holiday accommodation, there will be minimal highway impact and direct access to the public highway is available and safe. Thirdly, net gains to biodiversity can be secured once the application is supported by a preliminary ecological appraisal, demonstrating the works would not lead to any adverse impact to protected and/or priority species. Fourthly, pursuant to the first criterion of policy ECO 7, and might I add, contrary to paragraph 1.4 of the committee report that contains inaccuracies, the application proposes the redevelopment of brownfield land, which, by definition, brings with it inherent regeneration benefits. The application is supported by a structural appraisal which demonstrates that the building is permanent, sound structure capable of conversion. Fifthly, although it's recognised that access to sustainable transport solutions is limited due to the rural nature of the area, the site is otherwise served by a public highway and a surrounding public rights-of-way network, thus providing opportunities for both walking and cycling. Furthermore, notwithstanding the allure of the surrounding scenic countryside, the site is located close to other geographical resources that would be supported by and would support a tourist economic use. Sixthly, whilst opportunities to improve local rights of way or green infrastructure are limited due to the scale of development, they would not be prejudiced by the development either. The application would, however, provide for landscaping and a net gain in biodiversity, thereby providing for green infrastructure benefits. Seventhly, the need for a rural location for the development is self-evident by the existence of the currently established building. Policy HOU 12 provides justification for the conversion of such a building, and, considering the proposed development's positive compliance with that policy, this is of itself provides locational justification. In any event, the building is advantageously sited for the proposed use due to its proximity to tourism-related uses and attractions, including the nearby nature reserve, Thetford Forest Park, Thorpe Woodlands and Adventure Centre, and both the Peddars Way and Angles Way trails. To conclude, the proposal would provide an economic use for an otherwise redundant building, posing clear regeneration benefit. The development finds in principle favour with the development plan and accords with it when viewed as a whole. Furthermore, the development would comply with the policies of the NPPF taken as a whole. Respectfully, we therefore ask members to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to repeat some of what the agent said. It's being turned down on sustainability. If I go to almost all of my villages, I could say they're all unsustainable. Every dwelling you pass in any of my villages based on this report is unsustainable. I have no public transport. I have no form of anything that can get any of my residents to or from the houses other than the car. On this particular property, I have to say, when I first heard about it, I wasn't in favour of it. I thought it was a timber-framed shed that would eventually fall down and just vanish into the environment. On viewing it with the agent and indeed with the planning officer, it became very clear that it's basically a bungalow. It's got a shower in it already, it's got toilets in it, it's got septic tank, electric, water, it's all connected. Everything's there to make it sustainable. We spoke to a gentleman, I spoke to a gentleman in the village who built it back in the late 80s and said it was built by Bowden's local builder. It's a very substantial building, and I was very surprised by it. And then we come on to is there a need for it? Well,
I'm one of these people that doesn't really like going to towns and staying in places where there are lots of people. And actually, whenever I travel and go on my holidays, I seek out rural buildings, somewhere that's quiet. I tend to cycle a lot, so I cycle to these buildings. I think this is exactly the sort of place people that want to escape the rat race of life at the moment, want to protect their mental health, want to secure that holiday, that space where there is no Wi-Fi signal, there is no anything there. They would go there. And I would argue it is very near, as the agent said, very, very, very many rural and sustainable sources. We've got pubs locally, we've got the Peddars Way locally, we've got the other tourist parks locally. So whilst it is remote and whilst it's deemed unsustainable, I would argue it's actually very sustainable for those people that want that seclusion, they want those dark skies. And it's exactly the sort of place that I think many residents and many tourists will seek out to actually use as a one-bedroomed holiday let. So I'm supportive of the application. I support the Parish Council's view that they think it should be converted rather than just left to stand with absolutely no use. We as a council, I believe, support the reuse of redundant buildings. This building isn't going to go away. I know it's been refused before, but I think we should give it the opportunity to have a new life and be used for something rather than just let it stand there. It's not a blot on the landscape because it's been in the landscape for the last 40 years. So I believe we should allow it to have a new use and be sustainable going forwards. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. Councillor Attwell, Clark, and then Wilkinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know this area at all, so could you just explain to me what this pavilion used to be used for and how do you access it at the moment? Is it possible you could just show me that on a screen? Is it accessible by road at the moment? What was it for?
Yeah, the building was originally a cricket pavilion built. There used to be a cricket pitch just in front of it, and the local community used it for very much that, and that's why it was built by the local builders. It is accessible by road. I don't know if there's a picture of the map that you can bring up. Oh, yeah, we're good, lovely. It's a small road, single track road. But it's part of my ward. It's a very accessible track. It takes you between Hopton, Barningham, and the main 1066. So it's about half a mile off the A1066, beside a relatively rural hamlet. Behind, if you know Riddlesworth Hall School, it's kind of directly behind that, off the 1066. So yeah, very, very easy to access. And the cricket club used to, because it's a very dry, sandy land, the cricket club used to just drive straight across to the pavilion. It's the type of soil that just never gets wet. It's just dust.
Was there another question on that?
Oh, sorry.
So would it be fair to say that there used to be a number of vehicles and people accessing that building anyway? So if we were looking at this as a holiday let, if you're a family, turn up with your estate car, 2 or 3 kids in tow, that's probably less people than that used to be there when that was engaged as a cricket club. Would that be a fair assessment?
On the basis that there was a bar inside, I imagine it had quite a lot of rural activity going back a while. And I believe when it was last put through, they actually still had all the beer crates, etc., stacked behind the bar. So yes, it definitely had more people. I was hoping there wouldn't be families with 3 kids, as it's only going to be a 1-bedroom place. But when a couple with their small car turns up, yes, I don't think it'll have any impact on anyone, and it's far enough away from any properties that actually no one would notice.
Councillor Attwell.
Thank you, Chair. So the last one. So if permission is refused for this today, what happens to this building? Is it just the idea is that that's just going to stand there and eventually sort of fall into complete disrepair? I personally think, if you can regenerate the building, it's there. It must have drainage. It must have systems in place if you've got showers and power to it, etc. I'm just wondering what the plan B is. If you don't get permission, does this building just fall into disrepair? Can it be used for anything else?
Possibly, but that's not something that we need a viewpoint on at this moment in time. Mr. Wood, please.
Just for clarification, there's no access track from the gate onto the public highway up to the building. That is all grass at the moment. So if members were minded to approve it, there would need to be details of that access way.
Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry about the delay. Technology. It's a bit like air traffic control sometimes. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentations and to our officer as well. Coming from, I have an open mind on the application, obviously, and I don't know the area like Councillor Attlewell, taking the reverse position, and this may require an intervention from Mr Wood or Mr Horn. If the application was approved, bearing in mind not just the previous history, but also the statement that Officer Minto has mentioned in terms of a previous refusal of another case and on appeal, etc., how far approval of this would make a precedent for similar such applications? As I said, I'm not prejudging anything either way. Thank you.
Can I just come back? The appeal that was quoted was looking at the principle of employment, tourism use on a site, and that weighed up against environmental and other benefits. That related to new buildings. What you're looking at here is an existing building, so you're entitled to come to a view on that. I think from my point of view, members would need to be clear that they are able to identify benefits around this development that would outweigh the harm that's been identified in the report around the impact on policy EC07 and also the lack of sustainability in terms of its location, etc. So members are perfectly entitled to come to a view on that and apply the weight they think is appropriate. But I think for the purposes of decision making, you would need to be able to clarify that and articulate that.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I was just going to ask about the creation of the access, but it sounds like officers and the materials is what was going to be used. It sounds like you're going, if it was given permission, it sounds like you will be discussing the access track and materials used with the officers. I didn't want to see a lump of concrete go across a field type of thing.
No.
So
okay, thank you. Any other further questions, Councillor Kittle-Morris?
It's not a question, Chairman, it's a bit of a statement because like Councillor Nunn, I've got 24 villages in my county area. None of those are sustainable. I live in a service centre village and I can't get to any of the local towns 8 miles away to do a day's work because I can't get back. And in most cases, the buses only run on school days anyway. What is sustainable for a holiday cottage? How is it different, your sustainability transport problem, from a residence which you put in place with families and 2 or 3 cars? And what is the difference between that and what we've got here? I would maintain that if you went on holiday in this particular location, you might want to go out for a meal in the evening rather than cook your own meal in the kitchen that's provided. There's no transport system that will get you to a restaurant or a pub anywhere near without you using your own car. So I would say the sustainability question here is rather different than actually you look at in terms of residential development. So I would support this application personally, and when we come to the vote I shall do that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kybird, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If this was passed, would it be expected to deliver a net biodiversity gain, and has that been offered? Not
yet. The ecologists raised no objection to this proposal, subject to the provision of conditions which would have included net gains. So no objection, subject to securing a per dwelling tariff for Norfolk GRMs and biodiversity mitigation and enhancement measures.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No, thank you. So with regards to this item at Riddlesworth, 3PL 2023-0569/F, Your officer's recommendation on this one is one of refusal. Could I have a show of hands for refusal? One. And those against? 8. So from the floor, if I could have your recommendations, Councillor Wilkinson.
I think, thank you, Chairman. I think the committee feels that there would no, as it's an existing building there and being converted, it will not have any extra impact on the countryside, and it complies with Power 12 under the Breckland local plan, which, as members, we support.
Sorry, Chairman.
Sorry,
can I come in very quickly there? I think it would be appropriate to make reference to policy EC07 as the relevant policy, and I think I can't remember, I apologise, but I think it was Councillor Attwell who made the point about the fact that historically this would have had a use that may have attracted visitor trips, so that may give some view as to the approach members take and the weight they give to the location of the building.
Okay. Are you wishing to second that, Councillor Attwell? Could you use your microphone, please?
Sorry, I'm happy to second that, but should we not add a possible condition in there about the lighting, any external lighting? Because I think that might be a concern for residents, just to make sure that that's. I think that's the only one I can think of, but I'll obviously, if Mr. Wood can think of anything that he thinks perhaps ought to be in there, I'll be grateful for his input.
Members are certainly entitled to suggest what conditions they think would be appropriate. I think lighting is something that we would want to consider, particularly along the access track. I think we would be looking to condition the details of the access track and its construction as well, and there would be conditions in relation to its use as holiday accommodation as well. I'm not going to say that list is definitive, but if members are minded to approve this, then we will pick that up with the agent and the applicant to agree appropriate conditions. And if there's conflict, then we may well come back to you.
Okay, so from the floor, your recommendation is approval. Could I have a show of hands for approval, please? 8. And those against? Oh, I think we've got 9 then. Councillor Brindle, were you?
Yeah, I voted for refusal.
Still refusing? Yep, that's fine. I weren't sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, gentlemen, this item has been approved. Thank you very much. Thank you. We now go on to item 9A at Harling.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a personal and prejudicial interest in this item, and therefore I will withdraw from the room.
Thank you very much. So this item is Harling, Garden House, West Harling, 3PL 2023-0656. And we've got Chris Hobson, who's doing the presentation on this item. Over to you when you're ready, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just get the presentation up for you. There we go. So, as Mike Horn just mentioned, this application is before you because the applicant is a council employee. It is a householder application. It's at the Garden House, West Harling, and the proposal is for the removal of an existing timber garage and its replacement with a timber cart lodge. So just to highlight one matter within the report, you'll see the supplementary agenda. There's been further a response from Natural England. They've highlighted no concerns or comments. They've highlighted their standing advice in terms of wildlife and protected species. I'll just come on to that in more regard when we touch on those aspects in more detail shortly. We'll just touch on the site itself firstly. So Here we have the application site here, shown by the cursor. This is a Grade 2 listed house, the garden house. We've got the existing timber garage located to its northwest here. So we've got the garden land associated around it to the northeast and northwest. And this here, we'll touch in more detail, is a flintwork wall here. You'll see from this in more detail in the next slide its general location. So remote rural location to the southwest of East Harling, within the parish of West Harling. This green area here is the Breckland Forest triple SI. We'll touch on that shortly in a moment later. But in more context here, we can see that proximity to the Breckland Forest here, so the site's here. So in terms of other uses, obviously rural agricultural uses, we've got the church here, a couple of residential sites here. In terms of the closest dwelling is Jolly's Cottage, which is just here, just to the northwest. So just coming back to the site itself, existing garage here, the dwelling and listed building here, private track running along here. As I say, there's open garden areas. I think historically was the poultry farm. So just in terms of site specifics, so this is the existing. So we've got that located in that kind of area at the rear of that portion of the garden area, residential garden area beyond here. We've got, again, flintwork walls here, timber fencing, and there's that view of the garage here and just towards the nearest house here. And this is a ancillary garage building here. The main house sits behind here, so we'll see it sits in the maintained garden area, and this is the flintwork wall which fronts the private track here. Also we see the runs along there. Then we've got the garage here. Just turning on to the proposals in more detail. So again, here's the existing you can make out, and the additional red area coming along here is the replacement, so it's slightly wider than the existing. And here you can see the relationship to the main house. And here's the proposal. So existing timber framed garage, much the same in terms of the proposals. Timber cart lodge, timber frame, weatherboarding to the external walls. We've got slates to the roof. In terms of height and scale, say it's in terms of footprint, it's largely the same. In terms of height, it's now going to be 3.928 metres, so slightly taller, approximately half a metre taller at the ridge. In terms of the siting, again, here we are in terms of the overall site and its relationship to the surrounding area, nearest dwelling here. So in terms of the considerations, you'll see from the report there's no objections raised from the local residents. The parish council haven't made comments either. Irrespective of this, officers have reviewed the application in light of the policies in the local plan. So in terms of the principle, it's within the garden area of the existing house. It's replacing an existing, so the principle's acceptable. We're looking at design character. I'll just flip back to the design. We can see that here again. The proposals are sympathetic in scale, design and materials. We can see it reflects the existing. It also reflects the historic nature of the site being within the garden area of the listed house. So in that regard, in terms of the impacts on the rural landscape, it's considered acceptable. And in terms of the key issues, in terms of the impact on the listed house, as mentioned, the materials and design is traditional in its appearance and form. So having regard to its scale and location, it's also not considered to impact on the significance and setting of the listed house to the southeast. In terms of other key aspects, as mentioned, the nearest house is approximately in excess of 40 metres to the northwest, and it's not considered to be any significant issues in terms of amenity outlook in that respect and overbearing impacts. In terms of ecology, I touched on the change in the recommendation. We have the comments from Natural England now. The comments were sought, taking a precautionary approach because, as highlighted, the site is within close proximity to the Breckland Forest triple SI. We've reviewed the potential impacts on that, but also in terms of protected species on the Breckland SBA itself as well, and having regard to the nature of the scheme, its location, the works involved. It's not considered that there would be any significant impacts on the protected sites in terms of the Breckland Forest triple SI, but also whether there's a potential impacts on bats, etc. As mentioned in detail in the report, having regard to the structure, its form of construction, height, location, it's not considered to be any significant impacts on bats. In terms of other considerations, I think, as touched on, the proposals are acceptable, having regard to the site's location in terms of the principle. It's a replacement of an existing. When we've reviewed everything in totality in terms of the policies in the local plan, the proposals accord with all the policies in the local plan. As you can see, it's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. No, thank you very much. Okay. Oh, do apologise, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask the officer to put up the actual plan, please, of what we were looking at?
Yeah, sure. Which one?
The overall plan of all the houses and the... Please. Lovely. Can you point out to me where the entrance is off the road to that garage, please? Because at the moment you've got a wall go down there, and I just wondered where the entrance was. I'm just being a little bit pernickety, but I just wanted to check it.
I presume the entrance is already there.
Well, I can see the wall, but is the entrance this side of the wall or the...
It's this side. So it's this side of the wall.
Lovely.
So this is fully enclosed with maintenance here.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kittle-Morris, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Is this in a conservation area?
No.
My next question is, why are we considering this apart from the fact that our solicitor is involved in it? Why is it before this committee?
That's it. That's the reason. Okay. It's a bit of a nonsense, but it has to be done. Okay, thank you very much. Your officer's recommendation on this one is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? That's approved. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, with that, item 10 is applications determined by the executive, the Deputy Chief Executive. I do apologise for your information. And item 11 is appeal summary, also for your information. At that, I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you very much. We'll just wait for the recording to cease.